Right, we're back on camera. It's 15th of June. I'm 40 years old today. And what a 40 years it has been. So many things have changed. Now, in the last video we were talking about racism. I spoke about my personal experiences with struggling with identity issues as a young person. I didn't really comment on how I overcame that, but in short, I embraced both sides of my growing up, so the English and the Indian side, and I'm equally proud to be both, if that's any sort of consolation, or if that's any indication as to how I personally dealt with that situation. I just embraced both sides equally, and I follow the philosophy that I talked about previously, which is taking bits from different cultures and different time periods and kind of combining them to come up with the best possible way of living in the 21st century. So if I see something that I particularly like from Hinduism, which we were just talking about, funnily enough, me and Luke were talking about Hinduism because we passed an Eastern temple just now, and I said it was good. It's a decent religion because there's no concept of heaven and hell, and they don't try to force anybody or convert anybody. It's kind of like, you know, everybody's accepted, and I like that about Hinduism. So it's something that I think is good about their religions. It's an attitude that I think we can all incorporate, for example. So yeah, taking little bits from different time periods and combining them, to form a society that is built upon rules that are relevant. To the time period we're living in, and rules that will facilitate the preservation of certain national interests. And in the UK, in the United Kingdom, we are struggling right now. It's plain to see for everybody all over the world what's going on. And I think that in the last 40 years, the level of nationalism and pride in Great Britain has been diluted. And there are some people who positively can't stand the country that they live in. They think it's a farce. They think that the British government are hypocrites. They think that white people, specifically white British, have reparations that they need to pay, and they need to continue to hold the great white hunter guilt with them wherever they go, for the hundreds and hundreds of years of colonial past. Even though the white people who are living now could be very good people, they could have changed their attitudes, they could have experienced racism within members of their own family, and have elected to modernize themselves according to a new Britain. And I spoke at the end about comedy and how we mock certain institutions. Like, for example, let's say you have a program which depicts a colonial old empire type of individual who's extremely racist and going around calling people spacky and niggers and all sorts. Let's say somebody was to do a skit that included a old fogey from the Empire, and the old fogey from the Empire was ranting and raving about how things used to be, and he had no qualms about making fun of blacks and saying that Pakis smell and whatever, right? If somebody was to make a joke about that, depending on how the program was kind of like broadcast and who was in it and who was saying it, I might not immediately jump to the conclusion that this is a racist depiction and I don't want it to be on telly. I might say something towards the lines of, look at how hilarious that is, right? Look at how funny that old fogey guy who's harking back to the empire is, and look how ridiculous it is to behave in that way, right? That might be my initial reaction if it was done in the right way. So that's an example of a joke where you're mocking a certain institution, a certain attitude, a certain lifestyle, and it's funny because you can imagine it in your mind. You can imagine this crazy, you know, old racist Englishman, right? And you mock it, and it might come across as racist, and there might be a few people who look at it and be like, Jesus Christ, I miss my granddad. He was right. He was a great man. You know, if Packies and everybody else, they're all, you know, we don't want them here. You could go down that route. And some people might say, well, you're encouraging people to go down that route. No, never, ever, ever, take for granted the intelligence of the British public. Because I think there are a lot of people out there that would have the common sense to say, you know what, that's really quite funny, and we know why they've done it. We know why they've done it, and it sounds ridiculous in its stereotype, and it was funny. And you know what? If a white person plays a black man, or a white person, because that's taboo. Like for example, Little Britain people, the two guys in Little Britain, they had to apologise for blackface, right? Saying that it's a little lazy nowadays. It's a little lazy nowadays for white people to be portraying black people in comedy, right? But that's just an excuse. That really is just an excuse. They loved it when they did it, and they thought it was funny, and we all thought it was funny too. That's why we watched Little Britain back in the day, right? But now, because of the current climate, the two creators of Little Britain have come out publicly and said, well, you know, I think it's a little lazy. I think it's a little lazy for white people to be portraying black people, and quite honestly, I don't know why I did it. You know, we know that's a lie. The inside, inside they freaking love it, and they aren't ashamed of it, and they're just saying that because of the public pressure. And a lot of companies now are going to be forced to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Like for example, I read about Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's have got BLM or something plastered on the front of their bloody ice cream tubs, yeah? And the reason why they got Ben & Jerry's BLM posted is because they don't want their products to suffer from people who are saying that Ben & Jerry's are Black Lives Matter, are against Black Lives Matter. So what's happening is they're using scare tactics, they're using fear tactics, right, to pressurize people into believing. And that's because English people in general are quite placid, in my opinion, right, especially sort of middle class and above, are quite sort of placid, peaceful people that like to avoid confrontation, right? And what we try to do is we try to live our lives as best as we possibly can. We certainly don't want any kind of altercations, because we've got plenty of other things that we like to do with our time. And most people are too busy, and they just want to get on. So what they do is they just say, well, we're not going to do any of that stuff anymore. It's really a hassle. Obviously, these people are kicking up a major fuss, so we're going to tone things down. We're just going to... But I think that's very dangerous for a society to do that. I really do. I think it's very dangerous for a society... Right, yeah? You don't need to think. You can tell me, because they on the video they know that I'm working with you anyway. Everyone knows. Everyone's seen Luke, innit? Say hello, Luke. Hey, there's my boy. He loves it, mate. He loves it. He loves driving with the Sambo. So I think it's dangerous for a society to be malleable or weak, whatever you want to say, weak enough that the slightest bit of sort of dissent causes people to sort of get scared and say, oh God, we're going to give up everything that we stand for because we just need to keep these people quiet. We've got things we need to do with our lives, you know. You certainly can't, you know, be worrying about not really a lot I can do. Thank you very much. And what do you want me to do? My light was green. I was just creeping out. Right, okay, sorry about that. We are out of that little pickle. So I think it's a dangerous thing for a society to be pressurized by a minority group whose feelings have been hurt. You know? And my message to English people, this is what I was getting at yesterday. My message to English people is there are a lot of people from ethnic minorities, right, who appreciate your culture. And we appreciate what you stand for, and we appreciate all the things that Great Britain is good at. And it's because we feel British, even though we aren't white. That's the reason. Oh, that's my reason anyway. It's everything about Britain that I like. There's really very few things that I don't like, apart from the people who are against Britain. I don't like them. I'll be honest with you. I don't like people who don't appreciate the country that they live in and who are constantly looking for excuses to turn this great nation into the devil incarnate. And it's not. I like everything about Britain. I think it has an extremely rich literary history. I think it has the best literary history in the entire world, okay, which has come up with more works of art, literary works of art, than any other country. I think that the Great Britain, so England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, have contributed more to modern science than pretty much any other country, because modern science was born out of Europe. You can argue all you like about how other countries started science and maths and algebra and whatever, yeah. So yeah, that's fine. Yeah, maybe a few very important things like the decimal system were created many years before, so the basics were set down. And if you want to then give credit to whoever created the basics for everything else, which is ridiculous, but if you want to do that, then I suppose you can. But modern science, genetics, engineering, electrical theory, the Ernest Rutherford models, theory of evolution, entropy, you know, list just goes on and on and on and on with the amount of scientific achievements that have come out of Britain. Okay, so they just can't be denied in that area. Unfortunately, if you're talking about modern science, they just can't be denied in that area. Now, I'll give you a quick explanation as to why the British were particularly good in science, and that was because the British, at the time that all these inventions were being created, were a flourishing nation. They were the best country in the world. They were at the forefront of science and engineering, and it's usually economies which are flourishing that are going to invent lots of different things. And the reason why that is because when you have a country that's doing really well, you have people in that country who are so comfortable. Right here, yeah? They're so comfortable that they have the time to create rather than just to survive. Like many other countries in the world, they're just trying to bloody survive, right? Britain was doing so well that they weren't just surviving, they were making shit as well, inventing things. Because they had the time, their nation was doing well. They had time and money to invest in research and development, R&D, right? Hence the reason why the British Empire flourished. And it was at the expense of blacks, and it was the expense of my own people. But I'm not getting angry. I mean, my people weren't slaves, but they were close enough. We were still wiping the arse of the British for many years. But I didn't get my knickers in a twist, and I still haven't got my knickers in a twist, because those times are gone. Indians have proved anyway what they are, and they're not stupid. Chinese have proved who they are. They're not stupid. Blacks have proved who they are. They're not stupid. There are plenty of clever black people in the United States and here, you know, and black people should be damn proud of what they've achieved, and they should use those people and hold them up on a pedestal and say to yourselves that every black child should try to be like these guys, legitimate, law-abiding and intelligent people. And that's it. What more would you? Just keep things simple, mate. You know, if the problem is the youth, only people that can solve it is the blacks themselves. Yeah, you can ask for help from the British government. They can put youth centres in place and all sorts of things, and that's great. You know, I'm sure the British government would be willing to help you with that. I'm sure they already are, right? But it's the families, it's the people who, mums and dads, you know, it's a very complicated issue, so I don't think it's something that we can really sort of even fit in one video. Right, mate, yeah. But it is down to black people themselves, in my opinion. Nobody can change.
Approachment detected.
Nobody can change unless you want to change, and that includes the mass psychology of a race as well. If the mass psychology of a race is conducive to higher education, it's conducive to economic growth, then you have to say that those people, whoever they may be, are doing something right. The mass psychology of a certain ethnic group could be good, or it could be better than another group, and you can make a comparison. Why not? Why can't you compare Chinese, Indians and blacks? Why? They're all ethnic minorities. So what is one group doing better than the other? You have to ask yourself the question, and you have to ask yourself the question that I see something in a different ethnic group which I like and I respect, and I want to try to incorporate that into my own ethnic group. And it starts from the individual. It starts from the individual. It starts from the black man listening to this video. It starts from the Indian man listening to this video. It starts from the white man listening to this video. And I have one last thing to say, because I don't want to make my videos too long and onerous, but I have a message to all English people, and this is my solution to this entire problem. You want this country to stay great, right? You need to make sure that you are preserving the attitudes and values that we find great in this country, and don't cede to those people who are trying to spoil it. If you believe in something, and if you believe that your people are great, and I believe in you, then fly your St. George's flag. There's no need to be racist. We all know that time is gone, right? There's no need to be genuinely racist. That's just silly, right? Support British people, support your own people, support your history, teach your children the importance of British history. And even if the country has irreparably changed, okay? Even if the country has irreparably changed, right, Stoneleigh Place, we can possibly reduce the damage that has been created by people who don't like this country, by making sure that the values and the attitudes that have made this country great persist through time. And we do that by being proud, and we do that by promoting the things that are good and being steadfast and being faithful to your cause.
Right then left, yeah.
Right then left, yeah. And I think really that is pretty much all we can do. It doesn't do any good to anybody to be a racist and start throwing around, treat each person as an individual, respect them. Avondale, right, here we are, and that's it. So that's part 2. That is all I wanted to say. So yep, there are people out there, rest assured, who are non-white and who are part of this country and who love it. And another quick thing I want to say is, if you want to know how much you love this country, then I recommend you read a book called Bill Bryson's Notes from a Small Island. And if you get a warm fuzzy feeling in your stomach from reading that book, you're English or you're British. If there's nothing in that book that you can relate to, maybe you shouldn't be here.
What number is that? 22.
22. And that's it.